It's been a long time since I started this project, but finally I can release this video. I'm really excited about it because I'm going to be able to play with demons. I'm going to be able to play not only with demons, also with cultists, because I can use my Dread Elves as the cultists and then use the Wayward Children archetype to represent them as elves. And then I can use my my Warmachine Cryx models, so that's another game for which I have an army. I can use those models as demons. I was planning to do so for quite a long time, but I had to figure out how to get them on square bases, basically, because they are fielded in the Warmachine game normally on round bases. And Warmachine has 30mm round, 40mm round, 50mm round, and 120mm round. So to convert these sizes to 9-gauge sizes is a little bit tricky, but I found a way to do it. So this is a first picture of the demons that I have that are suitable for 9-gauge. I believe I do have some more models on 40mm base that are just behind the big flying bird. But I don't actually have sufficient trays for these guys, so maybe in the future if I really want to get some more 40mm bases, I'll make sure that I get some. I'll show you how I did it with the infantry. So this is a picture of what I'm going to be using as lemurs, most probably, possibly also as succubi. So the 30mm bases, they are too big to fit in the squares for the 25mm bases, obviously. So I made a cutout where you have two levels. So in the lower level, these are the second guy and the fourth guy in the first row. You can see that they are kind of embedded in the tray, and the others are just floating above. So in the tray itself, there's a magnet. On the bases, underneath the bases, there's some metal to hold them in place so that they don't move around if I move around my units. And in this way, I can use these models for 25mm purposes, because then the movement tray indicates the lines that you can see are the lines where normally the base would end. So this marks out the correct size of the bases. I will also be bringing some spare 25mm square bases for tournaments and stuff, just to be able to mark out a bit more precisely where my units are. And then these models are the models that I will be using as imps, probably. They have guns, so that should be quite logical. We also have the Myrmidons. I think normally you field them 3 wide because they have 5 an extra rank, or you field them in big units. I can just merge my movement trays together to make big units, obviously. These models, they are a little bit bulkier, so the units seem a little bit cramped up, but I think it's going to be fine. Next up, we have the models that I'll be probably using as Brazen Beasts. So they are on 50mm round base. I just have the cutouts for 50 times 75mm. So I can also just switch around the models, but I think cavalry models in general represent Brazen Beasts quite well, also because these kind of are a hybrid between a mount and a rider, in the sense that they're basically centaurs. And otherwise we still have the Hope Harvesters, or Titan Slayer Chariots, or Miser of Sukulak. I believe they're all on 50 times 100mm base. So these are models that I can be using for that. And then we have, in the bottom left here, you can see my options for either Clawed Fiends or Hoarders, or even the flying guys, the mage guys, the Veil Serpents. So I do have in there 2 flying models, and I have another model that is going to be very suitable as a flying champion. So then I can make a unit of 3 with a champion, which is practically what you want to run in order to get the channeling up, or the wizard in there. And then I have 3 40mm bases left to just field a small unit of Clawed Fiends, probably. In the back you can see my options for either Furies or Eidolons. So for Furies it might be a little bit less suitable because they don't seem to be flying that much. For Eidolons, it's probably perfect because some of these models obviously have ranged weapons, and they have flames all over, so they can quite convincingly play a role of hurling fireballs. And then finally I have my model that can be used as a Scourge. So this obviously has quite some big wings. It really looks like a combat choice. I think it's a really suitable model for that. And then in the right I have a unit on 50mm square bases. I realized that there's actually not that many choices in Demons with 50mm square. I thought that Hoarders were on 50mm square, but they are not. So this is gonna be for the Omen, and there was some other choice, I believe, but I have plenty of models still left. They can also just double a roll, also as Brazen Beasts if I want, or as Titan Slayer Chariots, or Hope Harvesters, or whatever. Then the last model is gonna be the Maw of Akan. So in my case, it's a model with wings, but the wings are not really functioning anymore because there's a lot of holes in them. So I think I can sell to my opponents quite convincingly that this is just a Maw of Akan. Also because it's the only model in the army with a base size correct for the Maw of Akan. You can see that I'm bleeding a little bit on the bottom, on the backside of the base, but anyways, I can always just remove the model if it's inconvenient in tournament play. Possibly substitute it with something else if my opponent desires, because there's a lot of flexibility in what I put on the bases, obviously. And then in addition, I made some cards for my opponents to be able to track what is what, because I can imagine that a lot of opponents are going to be confused by what this army represents. So as you can see, there's also some double options. I'm gonna use every single kind of model only for one unit entry. So you can see that, for example, I have here the Eidolons and the Furies listed as the same models, but for different choices. In that case, I'll only be playing one of the two, just to make sure that my opponent is still aware of what is what. So the only problem I'm gonna have is that my chaff options are quite limited. I only have models for Furies, and I could run Clawed Fiends as a chaff unit, but I don't have any models for Sirens, and I don't have any models for something like Hellhounds, or I don't really know what other chaff there would be in Demons, but I don't really have any option for that. So that is maybe a problem, but I'll discover it later. It's also, I can explain it on the fact that I don't have any 25 by 50mm options, because all of my infantry is on 30mm bases, and anything that is remarkably fast is going to be already on 40mm base. So I will just be composing units out of unit fillers, so that doesn't really work, in my opinion. Yeah, I hope that this sparks some creation amongst some of you to use maybe some armies you still have lying around for some other game systems to be used in 9th Age. And I hope to get some exciting games in with my newly acquired Demons. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you the next time.